Hello, welcome to Leicester Law School. My name's Edward Jones. I'm the admissions tutor here at Leicester Law School, and it's my team who decides whether to offer you a place, therefore. I'm joined by my deputy, who's Dr. Clark Hobson, and my other colleagues will be able to introduce themselves in a moment. In the background, we have Louise Johnson, our student recruitment administrator, who is supporting the chat. So if you do have questions during today's session, please put them in the chat function in the question and answer part, and Louise will channel those towards us and perhaps let us know what the questions are that you have. I'm also a qualified solicitor. I supervise students' work in our legal advice clinic, and I teach on professionally focused modules. So Troy and Colville, can you introduce yourselves, please?
Hi there, everybody. My name is Troy Lavers. I'm a member of the academic staff here at Leicester Law School, Canadian admissions tutor, and I'm a Canadian originally, and deal with recruiting from Canada. And I also teach Foundations of Canadian Law, one of our Canadian modules, and International Law. Thank you.
Super. And Colville, what are you studying, and what course course stage are you at?
I'm in my third year of my LLB program, so a 3-year, and I'm a Canadian.
And you can, so as you're Canadian, let's hear a little bit more about where you're from and why you came to Leicester.
Yeah, so I'm from Vancouver originally, and I decided to come here because I had my boyfriend's sister. She decided that she was going to come here, and she enrolled in the JD. And I had worked with lawyers that had graduated from here, so I kind of knew some alumni. So I think that kind of factored into my decision to come here. And I heard that there was a great Canadian society here and just many Canadian students. So I think that really helped me in the sense of moving across the world and kind of exploring a different country, but still having a little bit of home around me.
Excellent. So we've got with us today experience in the UK and experience from other parts of the world. Students who've come here, and Colville has an understanding of how things work for students on the JD Pathway 2-year programme, as well as her own experience on the 3-year. So if you have some questions about any of those courses, please do put them in the chat. Louise and Clark may well be able to answer them, or they will save them up for later, or we might ask them to let us know if there are any questions as we work through. Now, there's a whole load of information that I'd love you to see, and it may well be that you've done some research already. I hope that you visited our website of the LLB courses, and within that, there's a little video that you can watch that gives you a tour of the law school. So you'll be able to see the law library, the courtroom, where you can practice your courtroom skills. The law school is right in the middle of the campus next to the main library. And I hope one day, if you haven't joined us yet, that you will come and see us. You'll see some images of the law school in the presentations too. In this session, we want to introduce you to our degree courses, what you can do at Leicester Law School, and to explain why we think it is such a great place to study. A little also about how you will do that when you come for your LLB degree. Now, I wanted to make sure you have an understanding of what Leicester Law School and the university is all about. The law building that you can now see on screen, this here is an image taken from the start of the 1900s when the university institution started, and you can see our founding ethos on screen. The site for the university was donated by a local businessman to create a living memorial for all the local people who had made sacrifices during the First World War. It was funded by local people as well to rebuild their lives after that war. The law library was funded by a Canadian-born businessman, Harry Peach. Now, that was when his own sight was failing, so he was struggling to read. And from his business success, he thought about fostering the same in others. We're very proud to continue that tradition of shaping positive change in the world and in the lives of students and the communities both locally and globally with whom we connect. Now, today, we pursue excellence in knowledge and learning to to continue to transform our communities, the world, and even beyond that into space. Each year, the Times newspaper assesses universities on the extent to which they make the world a better place through pursuit of the United Nations sustainability goals. Our work on peace, justice, and supporting law reform, researching how to reduce crime related to hate, and supporting compensation claims by victims of hostile immigration environment that was created by previous governments in the UK, which you may well know as the Windrush scandal. These have all led this year to Leicester being recognised as first in the world, first in the UK. I always think that, in my mind, we are first in the world, but first in the UK for work related to the goal that most closely relates to law. And that makes us 8th in the entire world for working on this. So we want to make sure you know, in addition to that brilliance, why students come to Leicester Law School. Well, of course, it's because it's an excellent university. We have an ongoing history of being awarded high accolades for excellence. Since 2007, and again this year, we've had awards from the Times Higher Education Awards. We've won or been finalists in 3 media groups assessments of University Excellence in the UK this year. So, first of all, we are the Daily Mail University of the Year, and that's because of our diversity, teaching quality, student experience, research excellence, graduate outcomes, and social inclusion. The editor of that guide said that Leicester is a model university for the 21st century. Once one of the better kept secrets of British higher education, and a secret no longer. We're also in the top universities as finalists in the Times Higher Education University of the Year and the Times and the Sunday Times shortlist for the best universities. We've won the Queen's Anniversary Prize for Higher and Further Education 3 times. That's the highest form of national recognition for a UK academic or vocational institution. And we are very proud of our gold ranking in the Teaching Excellence Framework. That's a scheme that's run by the government. And that means that our university gives you an outstanding experience, helping you build your future. Students agree as well. There are over 130 UK universities, and the national survey from over 300,000 students puts Leicester in the top ranking universities. Now, that might be a really good reason to choose to study at Leicester. And of course, you might have some career focused reasons. It would be great in the chat if you can give Clark and Louise a bit of an indication of what you're interested in. So are you based in the UK? Are you based in Canada? Maybe you're in another part of the world. Maybe you're joining us very late at night from Malaysia, or you've just finished your dinner and you're in Cyprus in particular, or perhaps you're from Africa, and that would be great to know so we've got an idea of what you're interested in. That may well be that some of you are interested in qualifying as a solicitor or a barrister in England and Wales. Training to become a solicitor has changed in recent years, so I want to make sure that everybody has an understanding of how that works now. You can complete one of our LLBs, and that would be good preparation for your professional exams. After that comes the professional course and the exams that are associated with that. In England and Wales, this is called the Solicitor's Qualifying Exam. Now at Leicester, you are guaranteed a place on the professional training courses if you achieve a decent degree outcome, such as the ones that are run by our partner universities and trainers. That's the University of Law, BPP and Barbary. Or you might choose to stay at Leicester. In our city, we have an excellent course run by De Montfort University, and we're very friendly with them. The kind of course that you'll complete for your preparation to complete the solicitor's qualifying exams very much depends on how much depth you go into on the professional side of things on your degree. So you might be able to do that and do quite a focus on the degree and be able to complete a course to prepare for the first stage of the solicitor's qualifying exam in about 10 weeks. And then you would sit the exam. If you choose optional modules which cover much more exciting topics potentially that are not tested in the solicitor's qualifying exam, then our recommendation would be for you to complete a course of about 6 to 9 months, depending on how slowly or quickly you want to take it. You also need to complete 2 years worth of work training, and you get paid for that. At the end of that, just before you qualify, you would complete the second stage of the solicitor's qualifying assessments. These are very skills based. So you do things like present a case to a judge, write a letter to a client. For the barrister's profession in England and Wales, and also for lawyers who are looking to qualify in other jurisdictions like Malaysia, it's simpler. You complete your degree, you complete a bar course, and then you become a barrister. For full qualification to run your own caseload, you need 2 periods of 6 months of work, first assisting another barrister, and then secondly running your own cases. There are non-law routes as well, so you don't need to do a law degree to do this. You could, for example, do another degree and then perhaps proceed to a conversion course. Our conversion course is the Graduate Entry LLB. If you're interested in that, please do put it in the chat, because I'm just about to do a check-in with Louise to find out whether we have anybody who's interested in the Graduate Entry LLB or the JD pathway, the 2-year courses for people who already have a degree or are intending to do a degree and then do something like a law conversion. Now, the conversion courses, these cover the 7 essential subjects of law. Doing this in 1 year is very intensive. So for our course, this is done in a more measured pace over the course of 2 years. Now, before we start looking at the course in detail, let's have a look at what Leicester's all about. Well, employers really like Leicester Law students because the combination of both research-informed learning and professional practitioners means that you get the best of both worlds. You learn how law applies to real-life situations. You might even work in the real courts as part of your course, or within the pro bono free legal advice and assistance society. Now, studying law, when you're doing that alongside expert lawyers, professors and judges, means that you share their research, you understand what they're working on, and you're at the cutting edge of the law. You'll learn how to think carefully, imaginatively, and articulate those thoughts clearly, rationally, and sensibly. You'll learn the art of persuasion, how to express yourself clearly. You'll think about and you will discuss what kind of society we should live in and what rules should be imposed for that, for sometimes everyday life and sometimes unusual or traumatic events. This often involves massive and important issues, so I think it's utterly thrilling to deal with the issues that are at the heart of law and politics, controlling people's behaviour and relationships, and how to effect social change. Alongside this, you learn transferable skills for all sorts of careers. You might engage with some that are very focused on future law careers, like courtroom advocacy, but also other things that aren't just about preparing you to be lawyerly, like how to act ethically, how to uphold high professional standards of communication and advice, and managing effective teams. And all these are relevant to many careers. So there are students who do proceed to study as the solicitor's course and barrister's courses, but there are many that do other things as well. On screen, you can see a selection of the careers that our class from 2019, who are now well into their professional careers, have gone on to work doing. So some work in the largest law firms, for the government, for smaller firms, in the world of finance, accountancy and business. And if you have questions that are related to those other careers and why a law degree might be useful for those, I have some things for you to think about, but you might also want to ask some questions in the Q&A. The employers in the sectors that you can see on screen really value Leicester graduates because of the skills that you will learn. You will learn how to gather and interpret complex information from a wide range of sources, and that's relevant to all of these. If you're interested in one in particular, then you might have a think about that career while I tell you more about what you do on your law degree at Leicester. You will improve your verbal reasoning by creating arguments that are well-reasoned, persuasive and clear. You'll analyse problems to create solutions, and that will include the requirement that you do some lateral thinking. You critically assess the suitability of solutions to the needs of, say, a business or a client, a customer or a community. You'll write concisely and precisely with very close attention to detail, and importantly, to present your views and arguments orally with confidence. Now, with all of those skills, any options are available to you beyond the legal profession. And many of our students at Leicester go on to other fruitful careers. Now, Troy is here to explain a little more for those of you from Canada about how you would deal with becoming a lawyer qualified in Canada. So over to you, Troy.
Hi, thank you, Edward. Once you finish your law degree at the University of Leicester, you have to file an application electronically with the National Accreditation Committee in Ottawa. And they're very used to dealing with applications from abroad, obviously, because so many Canadians are going abroad now. And generally what will happen is you'll fill out CV information, you'll supply any and all transcripts that you have, and then they'll let you know, they'll give you an assessment and let you know how many exams you have to do. So generally, if you're on the JD pathway and you have an average of 50% or higher, with no marks under 46, you'll have 7 exams to do. If you're on the 3-year LLB and you have 2 years universities before you come into law school, and it's up to them to decide what 2 years actually means, it's not up to us, then you will have, assuming that you pass everything and a 50% average overall, no marks below 46, you will have 5 NCA exams to do. And then if you're on the 3-year, which you come straight from high school, you don't have 2 years university, you'll have, assuming you pass with a 50% average, no marks below 46, you'll have 7 exams to do. What happens is everybody does 5 of the same. So you'll have Canadian constitutional law, Canadian administrative law, Canadian criminal law, foundations of Canadian law, and professional practice. So those are the main 5. The 2 extra you may do if you're on the JD pathway or if you came straight from high school onto the 3-year, you're given a choice, and it depends on what kind of specialization you'd like to do, like family law or commercial law. So you're given a choice of the extra 2. So that's how the exams work. And you'll then, once you get your assessment, you can apply to do the exams. They have them on offer every month, but not everyone is offered every month, so you got to have a look at. And they're proctored online exams. Proctored means that there's a camera set up to watch you and a camera behind you to make sure you're not cheating on the internet. But it is an open book exam, but they don't allow you access to the internet. So that's basically the accreditation after graduation. Once you pass all your exams and you get your certificate of accreditation, you're the same as every other Canadian graduate of a law school in Canada. You're exactly the same, and you go on and do your articles and your bar. Now, how you do these exams, usually and probably most inexpensively, is self-study. So they charge you per exam, but they're a non-profit organization. So they charge you based on how many people are doing the exam. So it can range from like $450 each to $600 or somewhere around there. So most of our graduates will do them self-study. Some will take specialized LLM courses, and the student-run Canadian Law Society are really good at organizing info sessions for people coming in to sort of explain how you can do out of University of Toronto, Osgoode Hall, have specialized LLM just for NCA courses. UBC has an online one just for NCA courses. University of Calgary has a certificate. University of Alberta has a certificate. So it's not as, it's not like an LLM in that you don't do a dissertation, but you get your certificate. But they can be very pricey. So they usually start somewhere around 20,000 Canadian to do those. Or you could do it, like if you want to do self-study for professional responsibility and for Canadian criminal law, but you don't like Canadian administrative law because it's kind of complex, how you can appeal to different tribunals, you might want to do it as a NCA student in a law school, in a Canadian law school. So you can apply and say, I just want to do this one particular course there, and the rest you can do self-study. So there's a lot of variety out there for how you complete your NCAs. But there's tutors who sell packs of notes, and you'll get to know people within the law school. And I'm sure Culver will talk about things that she's heard already from other graduates, people who've gone on, graduated, who are currently doing NCAs, and how they share notes back and forth between themselves. So there's a lot of variety in how you do your NCAs.
Thanks very much, Troy. Now let's have a bit more of a focus on Leicester itself. So you've heard that people come from a wide area across the entire globe, from Canada, from Malaysia, from Africa, and from Cyprus in particular. So why do they come to Leicester? Well, we're a pretty small city, actually. So it's a very walkable city. Everywhere is easily accessible. But I think it's best to hear from the Canadians as to why they like to come to Leicester. So Troy and Colville, would you like to tell us a little more about your experience of coming to Leicester and the city? We've got some headlines here.
I mean, I guess I'll go first. I like Leicester because it's a nice size. It's easy to get around. I think probably more importantly, lately it has 2 Tim Hortons, so you can order on your delivery app and have Tim Hortons delivered on campus. And they have, there's a lot of great eating in Leicester when it comes to restaurants, and it's fairly inexpensive. So I think it's got good transport links. I know I've talked to some Canadians who are thinking about going to Welsh universities, and they said they didn't like the 9-hour commute from London to one particular Welsh university. Leicester's really connected north-south, so it's easy to go up and down, and there's a fast train that gets you up and down in about an hour. So I'll hand over to Culver, and she can talk about different aspects as well.
Yeah, so for me as a student, I feel like obviously I have a different perspective, but for me it's more so the students that are here, because there are a lot of Canadians, so it kind of does feel like a home away from home, especially being across the country. It is harder, and especially if you are someone like me coming at a younger age than JDs. Of course, they're usually in their mid-20s. I came here when I was 19, so it was a little bit more difficult, especially since it was my first time moving from home. But I feel like the students here make it amazing because there are so many Canadians, but on top of that, just the since we have Canadian professors, obviously that helps because it's like a piece of home with us. But yeah, even the accommodations, there are a lot of Canadians kind of everywhere. So just running into them and seeing what they're up to, it's nice just to have that kind of community in Leicester.
And sorry, I was just going to carry on and say that it was nice that you mentioned home away from home, because that's one of our slides. And I don't know if the people who are from Canada watching know that we have over 500 Canadians in our law school. We're the largest number of Canadians studying law at a UK law school here at Leicester. And that's because we've been recruiting from Canada for 21 years. So we have a lot of experience in teaching Canadians and having Canadians. We develop Canadian law modules. We have the Canadian Moot competition, which is really great because it's usually on a charter argument and gives you a way to study the charter. And we have the Canadian Law Society. There's a picture of them there at their ugly sweater Christmas party. I didn't want to say ugly Christmas sweater party. And a great alumni network. I just got back from Canada on the recruiting trip a week or so ago, and we had several alumni dinners, and it's great to catch up with alumni. We had a big event in Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. It's amazing how many of our alumni who are now in positions of power are able to help out more junior alumni. So it does become a careers issue when you're looking at making contacts across Canada.
Super. Now, while we're still on the topic of Leicester, let's have a quick look at accommodation. I know that the cost of accommodation will be a consideration for many people. Our accommodation within the university starts actually from cheaper than you can see on screen. It starts at £69 a week, and it may be that you're looking at something a bit classier. So a lot of our international students like to go for the accommodation that you can see where the prices are on screen just now. Gym membership is pretty cheap as well on campus, and that's just by the law school. We have two types of accommodation. There is this city accommodation, which is just on the other side of a cricket pitch from the law school. And there's the village accommodation, which you access using a free university shuttle bus. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And there's lots of sports facilities there too. Great thing about the accommodation is that all of your bills are covered and you get basic content insurance. And Colby has experience of living outside of university accommodation in private accommodation. Do you think Leicester's very well set up for that, Colby? There's lots of accommodation for students, because accommodation is only guaranteed for the first year, and then students often move into private accommodation or shared houses.
Yeah, I would say it definitely is, especially since I didn't ever live on campus, actually. I did consider it, but for some reason just never did that. But for starting with, I did start off in a different accommodation, and I was there for my first 2 years. And then I moved on to a different accommodation this year. But it's been great, and I feel like they're very welcoming. And also just because they are student accommodations, you run into more students rather than just a regular apartment, I feel like.
One thing I wanted to jump in on was, I know there's a crisis of accommodation at Canadian universities. And this has been mentioned in the news several times, and hence the federal government's restriction on international student numbers. But here, there's not the same crisis of accommodation. And in fact, as Edward said, all our accommodation is guaranteed for the first year. My friend who has her son studying at Leicester at the moment says she pays less for his apartment in Leicester than she did for his apartment in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So it's quite affordable overall, and we just don't have the same kind of crisis that they have in Canada.
Yeah, and there are some cities in parts of the UK where they have a similar issue. Right, let's get on to the law school, because that's why you're here, and let's focus on the courses. I've seen in the chat that there's quite a few questions in particular about some of our courses. So let's look at what happens when you are actually here. Well, we are an extremely supportive community of experts when we have a global outlook. Remember that. We're passionate about the law, politics and criminology. And what we really focus on is offering you loads of choices for you to explore. And that's not just in optional modules, but also in the societies that you can be involved in that are supported by the law school, and the pro bono projects as well, which you can even do as free legal advice and assistance during your course. The work is research led. So it's our experts who write textbooks that you'll use, and you work with the experts who advise governments and other agencies. You'll get some real world experience with problem-based learning and real problem solving for real clients in pro bono. Those societies that I've mentioned, they're award winning, so you can develop with them practical legal and professional skills. More about that later. Our courses then. So if you have a degree already, we have the JD Pathway LLB, which includes Canadian law modules, or if you're looking to deal with law with a different option and not Canadian law, then the Graduate Entry LLB is the one for you. On the 3-year course, we have LLB Law, and part of that LLB Law is a Canadian law stream where you can have access to the Canadian law modules. We'll show you where those appear in the course structure in a moment. If you'd like to do 25% of your course in criminology or politics, then you can do LLB Law with criminology or with politics. One or the other. If you want to carry on language skills with an extra year where you're studying abroad, and that language is French, Italian or Spanish, then you can do law with modern language where you go abroad for your 3rd year. I need to check whether anybody's interested in English law and French law combined, with 2 years in Leicester and 2 years in Strasbourg, because there are particular things that I need to make sure you know. If there's nobody on the session today, then we can skip over that. And even if you're not on those courses that are the 4-year courses, if you're doing a 3-year course, you can extend that to 4th year by doing an optional year abroad. There's much more detail, including course structures, on the website that you can see on screen. So maybe take a screen dump or do a quick photo so that you have that reminder to have a look at that website to find them. Now, what I can reassure you about is that all of our LLBs include the essential core subjects and skills that are required for an LLB course. Now, Foundations of Law, that focuses on ensuring that you understand how to be a law student, how to do a good job of it, how to analyse whether the law is good, and how laws uphold or should uphold theories of justice and improve society. This is currently split into 2 small modules on our website, and these are going to be combined into one large module. You'll learn more about the English and Welsh legal system and its structure, including structural problems that exist in it, and human rights in constitutional law. You'll consider the law that governs the relationship between you and the state, and that's administrative law and criminal law. And you'll also study the law that governs the relationship between the UK and its neighbours, that's EU law, including the relationship between EU law and its other neighbours. Now, you study the law about relationships between people that are actually agreed in contract law, or where they have not been agreed in advance in the law of tort. So, for example, medical negligence, personal injury kind of things. And you'll also study the law related to the relationships between people who own and use land. Last of all, there's equity. That's the rules about what you have to do if you're looking after somebody else's property. So the law that governs that kind of relationship. So if you're looking for a degree that's all about relationships and people, you've come to the right place. These are in every LLB law degree, and they are required if you are to progress to a bar course that's run in England and Wales. Now, many degrees include a module that is different to our Foundations of Law. They might call it the English legal system. Well, we don't. We have a global outlook. So you learn not just about the English legal system, and in fact, it's the English and Welsh legal system, so it's bigger than just England. And you look at the rules that are created by the full range of communities, not just old, mostly white men, which is what a lot of the English legal system is about. So here you learn about that, of course, but you also learn about law across the world and its effects on all sorts of people and communities. This helps you develop ideas of justice, what that means for different kinds of people, and what legal systems should be, not just what they are. Now, unlike many law degrees, we leave criminal law until the 2nd year. That's because we have the top experts in that subject here. We have the writers of the best criminal law textbook in the UK. So we save this until you have the skills to analyse the most complex issues in criminal law, but you actually do consider criminal justice in Foundations of Law as well. You'll take your modules further with the additional modules that are relevant to your particular programme that you choose. Again, take a screenshot of the screen so that you go straight to that list of degrees and you can find out more. Now, I've seen in the chat that there are some people who are interested in the graduate entry LLB, so let's have a quick look at what that is. And the JD pathway, of course, because we have some Canadians with us who already have a degree or will have by the time they join us. So you can see on screen the overall structure, and you'll see that the difference between these two-year programmes is that the JD Pathway LLB includes Foundations of Canadian Law, one of those National Committee for Accreditation exams that Troy mentioned earlier. That's in year 1. And in year 2, you're helped to prepare for the Canadian Constitutional Law. That's another NCA exam. For the graduate entry course, those modules are not in that particular course, but you do more in Foundations of Law. You do the analysing element and also look at law, justice and society. And you have a range of optional modules that can vary from year to year that you can see more about on our course structure page. So if you have more questions about those or you need a link to it, Louise and Clark will be happy to help you in the Q&A. Now, Troy, can you tell us a little more about the Canadian law courses, please?
Okay, first off, they are following the NCA, the National Accreditation Syllabus, and we use the same books that the National Accreditation Committee recommends for these courses, but they do not exempt you from doing the exams once you graduate. So they are a good prep course, but because of a legal challenge the NCA had a few years ago, they will not accredit any course outside of Canada. But they are great in that they prepare you for what's happening on the exams. And one of our recent graduates, 2024, said that she found, I was asking her how similar she found the foundations of Canadian law, which is the one I'm the module convener for, as how close it was to the exam she just wrote for the NCA. And she said it was very close. So that's nice. And what happens is you'll do Foundations of Canadian Law, which is like sort of a pre-constitutional law course, but it goes over different things that you won't necessarily cover in constitutional law. It goes over theories of law and racism in law, Indigenous peoples law, as well as appointment of judges and administrative law. So that you'll do in the second half from January till the end of March in year one, if you're a JD Pathway student, or you'll do it in the second half of year two, if you're an LLB student, 3-year LLB student. Canadian constitutional law, these are all taught by our Canadian academics. We have 4 Canadian academics, myself, Diana Dukia, Mark Cyril, and Jonathan Hack. And so all of us will be teaching on the Canadian modules. Canadian constitutional law, like I said, you'll do it in second half of second year on the JD Pathway, and then the second half of third year if you're on the LLB. So you can save your textbooks for when you do your NCA, because we'll be using the same textbooks and following the same syllabus.
Excellent. Thanks, Troy. So, Colbert, you've been doing the Canadian law stream where you are doing the 3-year course, and you've chosen to have open to you the Canadian foundations. So you've done a slightly shorter version of EU law to make space for that. And alongside your other option modules, you've been doing, or you will be doing next semester, Canadian constitutional law. Are you looking forward to that?
I am. I think Foundations of Canadian Law was a great introduction, and I think it was nice to have something that relates to Canadian law, even though the other courses do as well, but something that mainly focuses on it. So I feel like that was a great introduction, and now I feel like I've created a great relationship with Dr. Labers, so it's nice.
Excellent. That's lovely to hear. Now, I know that some of you will be looking at the JD Pathway where there are no optional modules, and some of you are looking at the 3 or 4 year courses where there are law modules. So I'm going to do a super quick run through so that you can see on screen quite what a range of optional modules that we have available on those 3-year courses. So it might be that at this stage you're not quite sure what to do. What you might like to think about is where you would like to focus. So you might be focused very much on making sure that you do lots for the solicitor's qualifying exam, and I've suggested some on screen there. Maybe you're more focused on a particular kind of industry like media or commerce, or you're up for a fight like I was in practice. I was a civil litigator, and there's a group of modules that are just right for you there. Clark, who's looking after some of the chat, he's a medical law expert, and he looks after some of the modules that you can see up there that have a focus on those. If you're into law because you want to deal with people a lot, there's a vast range that you can choose from. Now, essentially, you're doing either 4 big or 8 small, or somewhere in the middle where you've got a mix of large and small modules, like whole year or half year. If you've got a focus on theory and reform, then you can have a look at some modules that are there. So those are the kind of modules that you might want to do if you want to work in law reform working for government. If it's not just about people, but really vulnerable people or even vulnerable things, then you have some modules there that you can see on screen as well. Like I said, many law students are not quite sure what they'd like to do, and we have a selection for keeping your options open. If you, like many of the people on the call today, are really focused on the international world and you've got a global perspective, there's some that suit you. I have some recommendations for you if you're focused on the barrister's profession. So we've got a group that are really focused on crime and criminology, and they're ones that will give you the essential skills that you need to work as a barrister. Now, some people have mentioned law with criminology, I think, in some of the information that we've had. I've got to be really quick with what we're covering today, so I'm just going to deal with the basics. You can see on screen the criminology elements in red. Now, you could do at least 25% of your degree if you want as criminology alongside your law studies, so you've got the best of two different departments at Leicester. If you want to do a little more, then you can. So you can choose to take, like Culver did, so that you could fit in the Canadian law module in the second year. So you could choose to take a smaller EU law module and do an extra criminology module in the second year. In your final year, you have a mix of criminology and law modules to choose from, and you would kind of catch up with the modules like land and equity that other students might have done in their second year. For law with politics, it's quite similar. You've got 25% of your degree with some choices in the second and the final year alongside law modules. Have a look at the detail on our website though. Now, I particularly like law with politics. I've spotted that 3 of the new MPs that came in over the summer, they are lawyers or people who've been law students, and they're people who I've actually taught in the past, and they're on both sides of the House of Parliament. I don't breed a particular kind of political person who's really active in politics. Looks like I've managed to get a balanced approach across both sides of the House. Now, you might like to concentrate on working within government, but have the option of doing a law career later, doing it the other way around perhaps, or work within the government legal service. We have lots of graduates who've done this sort of thing. For example, a former student who graduated in 2020 is now a senior policy advisor at to the Minister of Justice, and she worked for the last Deputy Prime Minister as well. Recently, she's been working on drug strategy in prisons. Now, Louise, did we have anybody say that they're interested in the English and French law course? If there was, it's important that you take a screenshot of what's on screen now so that I can be sure that you've received some information. And if you're interested in modern language, so here's the screen for you. For your year abroad with Leicester, you can go to the places that are on screen for France, Italy, Spain, or Colombia. Get in touch with us, please do. Contact details coming up if you want to find out more about those. Now, I think Troy, you might have a nice quick way of explaining how our sessions work, if that's all right.
Hi, I just want to say something about the law with programs. If you do choose to do them, you will have more exams to do when you return to Canada, because the NCA wants you to have as many law modules as possible. So just keep in mind you may have an extra exam or two if you choose to do law with criminology or law with politics as opposed to law on its own. Really proud of the fact that we have a teaching gold designation by the TAF, Teaching Excellence Framework. And that, I think, is down to the fact that we not only do lectures, which are sort of passive experiences in big lecture halls, but we then split up, usually 2 of those a week for every module. You're doing 4 modules a term. Every second week, you'll have small group teaching and tutorials, and they're usually the size of 12 to 15. So if you look at other law schools, their small group teaching tends to be 25, 30, a lot larger than ours. And I think that if you talk to our students, one of the key things is our small group teaching. Lectures are passive experiences. You know, you can ask the occasional question, but there's not a lot of opportunity to talk. Tutorials or workshops and seminars that are slightly bigger, they are an opportunity for you to come prepared to ask questions. We expect you, we give you a list of questions, we give you some reading, we expect you to come prepared. And I think that's where you do the majority of your learning is in small group tutorials and in your smaller groups. And I think overall law, I'll just say this because I say this when I'm doing the recruiting in Canada, I don't think law is particularly difficult or hard intellectually. I've been teaching law for a long while. I'm pretty sure I can teach anyone law. Law is a lot of work, so you have to keep up with your work. You can't fall behind with your reading. And I think as long as you keep up, if you do need extra assistance, we have a personal tutor system. So everyone that comes into law school, every student gets assigned a personal tutor. And if you need them, go and see them. We all have office hours twice a week. So we're sitting there waiting for people to come and talk to us if you want to just have a reassuring chat or what have you. But, you know, that's there to help you learn, your personal tutor, if you need any additional help.
Thanks, Troy. Now, I have a whole load of information that I want to rattle through. So in addition to the help that Troy mentioned, we have really a suite of personalised kinds of support that you have. All of our teaching staff have office and feedback hours where they're guaranteed to have time available for you for small meetings or one-to-ones. That could cover support around learning, queries in depth about the feedback that you've had, some guidance and correction, even some advice and mentoring. Whatever support you need, our welfare experts, personal and careers tutors, the specialistic, highly experienced law support team are there to make sure that you get your support that you need for your study or personal life. We have student and professional mentors for students, and there's a team of mentors in each of the main modules. I'm sometimes asked about assessments. Our degree is not all about exams. There's a wide range of different assessments of the types that you can see on screen. They're designed to be tailored to suit the particular kind of law that you're covering. For example, there are some areas of law where you really need to know it. It needs to be at your fingertips. So an exam is appropriate for that. But there's others where it would be appropriate to investigate more, to research the law carefully and to provide considered advice. So there we would give you more time, say 4 weeks or maybe a few days if we're looking to replicate professional practice. It's all designed to maximise your chances of success. Now, we've been talking about societies that students get involved in. There's loads to do, something for everyone. The Law Society was judged to be the best in the country a few years ago, and there's a good reason for that. There's so many different things that you can do. You can see some events that they run on screen, and there's a wide range of sub-societies as well. Now, I know that we have some Canadians, so I have to devote some time to allow a little explanation about what goes on in the Canadian Law Society. So Troy and Colville, I think you're the best people to give us some insight into this. Should we start with Colville, as you actually are heavily involved?
So yeah, I'm a part of the Canadian Law Society. I'm just a regular member, but I feel like they are great at welcoming Canadians. They have a welcome event, which is, I'm sure this is where this picture is taken as well. And that event, it helps you make friends with specifically Canadians, of course, that you may not have met in your first week of classes or anything like that. So they do, I believe this is in the beginning of October. So it's nice because you kind of get to fall into class and then you have this event that they throw to kind of help you build connections and find people in your program. Yeah, so it's pretty nice and it's a great way to kind of create these connections and have them throughout your years here.
Great, thank you.
I'll just say that I'll go on to Canadian mooting because I think Culver said enough. Yeah. So Canadian mooting is, it was designed by our colleague Tracy Elliott. And well, what happens every year is there's a mooting competition that'll be locally and then it'll go for a national cup. There's Peter MacKay, former Attorney General, donating the cup many years ago. And so you'll be mooting. And mooting is pretend court where you're given a scenario and you're assigned a side. You have to argue your case. It increases your advocacy skills. It's a really good thing to do. And mooting is often a required element in Canadian law schools in the second year, although not all. But yeah, so we run this Canadian mooting competition that I think most of people should take advantage of if they're interested in doing anything about their advocacy skills or interested in court later on.
Thanks, Troy. Right, so I now have my whistle-stop tour of all of the rest of your experience at Leicester Law School. If you want to be involved in free legal advice and assistance, working with some real clients, you'll be in the right place. There's a vast range of projects, and I've summarised some of those. So you can give real advice, advice to real clients. You can even be with the client in the court in front of the judge. You might make a claim for a client under the Windrush compensation scheme if they've suffered under the hostile immigration system. You may support a client who's got concerns about an inappropriate sentence, and that could even be with the Amicus charity on death row in the USA. We are one of only 2 universities in the UK who support that charity. That's Winchester and Leicester. You might have great fun in the community, making sure that local people know about the law that they care about, or inspire young people to study law, which is utter fun. So please, if you do come, please join in with that. It's great fun getting out with some primary school students. That's the little ones that are only about 10 years old. If you're interested in year abroad, Louise, I didn't notice anybody saying that they wanted to know a lot about year abroad. Can I deal with that one quite quickly? Yep, so you can see on screen the destinations that you can go to. You might be surprised about which ones allow you to study in English. There are some countries where it can be difficult, but there's a vast range, and there's a website there. Take a screenshot and you can explore more about the universities where you can study for your year abroad. The fees are only a quarter of the usual fees. What we're looking for? Well, we're looking for students that are actually super motivated, have good reasoning skills, and are working towards their future career. So that's what I think, if you're putting in your personal statement and you're drafting it now, that's what it should focus on. We are also looking for educational excellence. So you can see on screen the kind of qualifications that we're looking for. If you already have your Canadian degree and you have a C average, then we'd be looking for to offer you a place on the 3-year course. If you've got a B average or a B minus average, then we can look at whether we can offer you the 2-year course. If you're close to that, still put in your transcript, send it to our admissions team, or email us on law@le.ac.uk, and we can give you an idea of which of the 2 you're eligible for. We have some special offers for international students. I realise that international fees are higher than they are for UK students, but if you meet our entry requirements, then we have a £3,000 discount. That's the entry requirements for the particular course that you're applying for. If you meet a higher level of achievement, then you may get an even better discount of £5,000. You can see that there's quite a high standard required for that, especially what I've mentioned there. That's applicable for Canadian school students. And if you're not in Canada, if you're in another part of the world or you're doing A-levels, get in touch with us and we'll be able to tell you what the requirement is for the £5,000 discount. There are other scholarships for which you may be eligible. The University of Leicester Scholarship supports students who have come from a disadvantaged background. If you want to find out more, see what it's like to be a law student, you can join us on the 15th of January. Go to that webpage, look for the events that are tailored for students who are in years 10 to 13, and you can find out more about why the dictators don't get locked up and don't go to prison. The quote is from a Secretary General of the United Nations. So you'll be able to find out, actually, is our world like that? Are the people who kill 1,000 let off the hook while one person ends up in prison for life? So overall, why is Leicester a great place to study? Well, you will be applying the law to real life situations. You can do problem solving for real life situations in a supportive community on the edge of a really vibrant and wonderfully diverse and exciting city that combines the historic and the modern. You'll see how the law works and how it does not. You'll be open to career options in law reform then, to develop the skills of argument that are required from the best lawyers who argue for this to change. And you'll get work ready with skills development that means you'll be super comfortable with real clients or service users because you have been doing that sort of work for years at university. Overall, there's so much to choose from in the optional modules, the course being tailored to what you're looking for, the activities that you can do in the Law Society, and pro bono projects. You'll definitely find something that you love. Now, I've been asked to highlight a few points for you. I think those are pretty obvious on screen. And last of all, how to get in touch with us. So please do stay in touch. You can see our contact details on screen. law@le.ac.uk is if you have some queries about the course. If you use the social media that is kind of going out of fashion a little bit, maybe it's just the old people that are using this, the one that used to be called Twitter, you can see our handles there. And if you've got some queries about admissions, study@, is a great email to use. And if you want to chat to me, to Troy, to Clark, to Louise, who's been looking after the chat, or to Emma, then you can use chat. This also includes current students, so you can find out what their experiences are like. So I think we've got a few small questions that we need to cover, a little recap of the high school entry requirements. So Troy, do you want to take that one? And I'll get on to applying through UCAS.
Hi there. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending. Do feel free to ask questions after this event. When it comes to high school, we look for an 80 average in your grade 12 diploma, and we're looking for an average overall. However, we do operate a borderline, so if you're close, we'll look at it. The thing to do is to apply. I encourage everyone to apply early to reserve your spot, because they have a rolling admission system in the UK. And if you apply, they'll give you a conditional offer, say you're in high school now, and then when you finish in June and you get your results, then you can send in your full transcript and hopefully change your conditional offer to an unconditional offer. But I encourage everyone to apply early so that you can hold your spot.
Thanks, Troy. And then in UCAS, we do have a deadline coming up at the end of January. That's only for the English and French law courses. You must apply by then if you're looking for the one where you do 2 years in Leicester and 2 years in Strasbourg. We continue to accept applications after the end of January on our other programmes. When you're putting together your application, what we're very much looking for is for you to explain your motivation, to explain the kind of law that you're interested in, and the steps that you are taking to achieve your future ambitions. I think that's a really good structure for a personal statement. And I've just been told time is up. Thank you very much for all of your time today. Thank you for your wonderful questions, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Troy, thanks, Colville, and thanks, Clark and Louise, for looking after us in the background. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.